Hi everyone, I'm Dana Kohut, founder of the Prime View series of interviews with top business and technology leaders. Today my guest is Mark Palmer, Senior Vice President of Analytics, Data Science and Data Virtualization at TIBCO, a global company that specializes in big data integrations. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. And my first question is about your career path that have led you to the current position at TIBCO.
Yeah, sure. So started off as a developer, got into sales and leadership, eventually wound up with startups and entrepreneurial efforts here in Boston. I'm from Boston originally, and linked up eventually with a company called Streambase and Michael Stonebreaker. Dr. Stonebreaker is pretty well known in the database industry as one of the sort of founders of SQL and the relational technologies. And he had the idea of a company to do the same for streaming data. So I love that idea and joined them as the CEO, and then eventually sold that company to TIBCO, another sort of pioneer in the real-time space. And I've been here since. It's been 7 years. I wouldn't have guessed it would be that long because I kind of flipped from being an entrepreneur to an intrapreneur, which was kind of is an interesting transition and difference. But it's been 7 years and now 7 product lines, depending on how you count, at TIBCO, with a range that you mentioned, from data to data science to streaming analytics, of course, and analytics, business intelligence tools.
Well, actually, that begs a question. What do you consider being defining qualities of an effective leader?
It's interesting. You told me you're going to ask this question, and I think it'd be quite arrogant to say, well, okay, here's how or even just to say I'm a good leader, right? I don't know that, but I think it does start off that way. My view of it is starts with, actually, I compare it to with the elements of maybe being a good dad or a husband, right? At least in my way of doing it. A lot of people say, okay, a good leader is chest pounding and go here and dictatorial almost, but I see it the other way, which is, being a good listener, being humble, learning from the people around you. I don't know. I blog about a lot of things. One of the things I talk about is becoming a widow when my kids were young, when they were 6 and 4, and I liken it to that. That was sort of a big shock for me, because all of a sudden I had to be both the emotional support and the leader at home, I guess. So to me, it's very similar. I mean, then the second thing though, so that's sort of the style, but I also think it's really important to have an exciting vision and to share the vision. I think that's the sort of, even when you're just a startup, right? We always have big dreams and big visions, like of changing the world. And that remains at TIBCO. We're really on the forefront of this whole, move to real time and using data and analytics and data science, which is, it's an amazing area. So I think that's my job, just to be excited about that vision and to describe it to the team so that they get maybe similar, enthusiastic about it.
Well, actually, recently I've subscribed to your blog, and I started reading it from the part where you shared your personal story about becoming a widow, when over a sudden you had to become mom and dad, right? And I really like the analogy that you have provided with a plane that is about to crash, where you first have to take care of yourself and then of your kids. And I think that might also work, it probably works well in the family, but I would imagine that would work also in the company, where first you as a leader, you have to have the vision and to take care of yourself first, and then that will translate to the people and your teams.
I like to think so. I hope so. I think, I don't know if my kids would always agree that that their dad's happy, maybe when they do some things that I don't like, but no, but in general, I think I think it's true. I think I think there are a lot of parallels between being, a good parent and good at work, right? And especially like in terms of diversity of point of view, right? I think you might have seen there that one of my kids is a girl, Ruby, And so probably the more challenging thing for me has always been to sort of see things from her point of view. And even today, you mentioned the blog. One of the things that we do is sometimes she reads my blog post to me and she's like, Dad, I don't get this. I'm like, okay, great. And my goal is to make it so Ruby can sort of see it from her point of view and understand it. So it's always a fun test.
Well, I would be curious to know what kind of individuals you're looking to bring to your organization in order to establish the right innovation culture. Like back in the times where you were a part of Streambase and now at TIBCO.
Well, again, diversity is a really big theme for us and for me, I think everybody, including not just the diversity that people automatically leap to, which is, which might be gender diversity or ethnic, but also cultural. We have a really widely distributed team throughout the world. Big centers in Sweden and Vietnam, which are both really interesting places culturally to learn about and to work with. So with diversity as a theme, it also is, maybe the HR department on it wouldn't be the right way to say it, is also just like new points of view. I think the world obviously is turned on its head, but like, what's the implication for that? I think it's very natural for, like my kid's in college now, when he comes out, it's going to be very natural for him to work remote, obviously provoked by COVID, but this has been going on for a long time. So, I think that sort of mega move changes not just the way you have to compose teams, but also in our case, how you build products, right? Like we're building products that are for people that kind of come out with a much more, in many cases, technically oriented background. You have to be more familiar with technology now. It's not like building products for people that were, before they had cell phones, can remember that. It's the digital first mentality. So we really try to get a vibrant, internship type programs, get some, new blood into the system with new ways of thinking, and then engage with them. Really, I spend as much time probably talking to newer engineers, because I think that's my favorite time to talk to them, because they're looking at our products with fresh eyes. So I think that translates into needing to lead in a segment of the market where things are changing so rapidly, and in ways that someone in my age, I'm in my 50s, wouldn't ordinarily think about, even though I'm very digitally attached, obviously. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me to be looking for as we kind of morph the organization into a new era. Yeah, the other thing we do a lot that I would just add is that we're a lot of people know we've acquired a lot of companies in the last, say, 5 years. I lead the M&A work here too, on the business side for our company for the data and analytics products, and we've acquired, I think, six companies now in the last 5 years, and you get great diversity of thought from those too. One of the things I wrote about, one of the acquisitions we did was with a French company whose engineering organization was in Vietnam, as I just mentioned. And we've learned when they came into our company, they had over 45% women in the engineering team in Vietnam. And I just thought that was one of the best things that we acquired when we acquired that company, was just that way of thinking and building that culture. So, you can actually grow your own culture through acquisition, even though a lot of times people think of it the other way around, right? Like the big company imposes its culture on the little company, but in that case, we learned from them.
Well, that reminded me a case from the history when the Roman Empire, actually, when they conquered Greece, they were conquered by Greek culture. So that actually great analogy to what you just told us about acquiring a smaller company, but learning a lot from their culture.